The man is kissing his wife. But the gangster nearby looks too close and snaps a picture of the moment. The man immediately realizes what happened. He hopes the gangster will delete the photo. But the gangster says, "No, not a chance." Men stand up and start arguing. The gangster doesn't delete it. Instead, the video gets uploaded to social media. They worry Dan might fight back, so they try to make the husband drop it. But Dan just stands there, staring quietly. Jessica watches nervously. Then, the gangster drinks from a cup. The drink spills on Dan's head. Dan's anger flares up instantly. Even after that humiliation, Dan chooses to walk away. Not because he's scared. As a former top assassin, he simply doesn't want trouble. He's washed his hands of that life. Now he just wants to be a good dad and a decent husband. What Dan doesn't know is, his backing down won't calm things. The next morning, Dan takes his little son to the supermarket. He opens the fridge door, and a strange man steps toward him. Dan seems to sense danger. Then suddenly the man attacks. Dan fights back quickly. They wrestle. Dan tells the attacker to at least put the kid down, but the attacker ignores him and strikes again. Dan soothes the child and manages to block the blows. Still, the attacker won't back off. The fight draws the neighbor's attention. Dan tries to explain, but the killer barrels into an aisle and knocks over a shelf. That pushes Dan over the edge. No more mercy. Everyone in the store is stunned by Dan's moves. They'd always thought of him as calm. They didn't expect this side. After subduing the attacker, Dan picks up the fallen diapers, leaves the cashier bewildered, and walks out like nothing happened. Then he speeds home. A sleek, well-dressed car pulls up at the door. The neighbors gape. Dan keeps moving. He rushes inside, sets his son down, grabs a knife from the kitchen, and goes to the stairs. He scrapes paint from the wall, revealing a small black button. He presses it. A stair panel pops open. Dan pulls out a black bag. Inside, weapons and old passports. One passport is expired. Dan looks resigned. He pulls out 2 plastic-wrapped stacks of cash. Then he goes upstairs and calls Augie. Augie is shocked to hear Dan is still alive. Dan doesn't have time to explain. He asks Augie to help him, Jessica, and their 3 kids get new identities. Dan offers $500,000. He wants Augie to sort it out. Jessica buys some gold in their retirement community. After the call, Dan comes downstairs with his son, looks around the home he's lived in for so long, and prepares the family. Dan tells Jessica, who works in rehab, that they're taking the family to Las Vegas. She's surprised. Dan says he's been planning it for a long time. While they pack, Dan notices the SUV downstairs. He tells Jessica they must leave now or risk traffic. The family gets in the car and drives off. At the parking lot exit, Dan sees the black car again. The people inside stare at them. A bus pulls away. When it leaves, Dan's family disappears from sight. The pursuers drive into the lot and wait. When the coast seems clear, they speed off. Dan thinks he's shaken them, but the black car reappears behind him and races toward their vehicle. Seeing them close in, Dan swerves sharply into another lane. Facing the killer's aggression, Dan heads to his workplace, a used car dealership. The black car slams into an iron gate nearby. Dan drives into the repair bay, using the oil change stall for cover. The black SUV pulls up again. Dan checks under the car and finds a tracker under the fuel tank. He rips it off and hides behind a workbench before the black car can spot him. After the SUV leaves, Dan goes back to the lot and sees a co-worker about to take a test drive. Dan sticks the tracker onto the lining of the co-worker's rear wheel. The co-worker speeds off. The killers see the tracker moving fast and start chasing that car instead. Once the killers are gone, the family gets back in their car and heads for the Las Vegas Strip. The trip is scenic, so Jessica starts filming them. The kids finally, reluctantly, hand over the phone. Dan tosses it off a 100-meter high bridge. Everyone freezes at Dan's action. He says he did it to bring the family closer. The kids don't like it, but they give in and sing along with their dad. Back at Dan's place, McCaffrey is furious. He smashes a photo of the 5 of them on the wall and orders his crew to find Dan's family. The tech team tracks all their social accounts but finds nothing. The phones are off. The only lead left is to find that van. Night falls. The family sleeps, but Dan stays alert, driving carefully. He notices people on a bridge nearby. He's been spotted. A motorcycle gang catches up. Dan glances at Jessica and the kids, cranks the stereo up, hands out headphones, and draws a pistol with a silencer. He slams the gas and leads the pursuers off the highway. When one attacker closes in, Dan shoots to send him flying. Another rider pulls up beside them, ready to fire, but Dan grabs him off the bike. In the scuffle, Dan's gun falls to the ground. He can't reach it. Kyle, in the back, passes up a bottle. The killers keep coming. Dan steers hard. The bike loses control. In the next moment, the attackers are dead. Jessica wakes up. Dan stays calm, telling her it was just a rough bump in the road. She believes him. They're close to Nina's future college, so they decide to stop and visit. While touring the campus, Dan sees a man with a wheeled suitcase shouting. Dan thinks a killer has come after them. After Jessica and the kids go inside, Dan checks the suitcase. It's full of plant seeds. Suddenly, a man with a weapon appears behind him. Dan grabs the suitcase, tosses it aside, and ducks into a nearby building. The killer follows with a gun. As he searches the room, Dan leaps out, disarms him, and smashes the gun into some lab equipment. They fight hard. After a brutal struggle, Dan knocks the attacker out. Then they continue to Las Vegas with Jessica and the kids. This time, Nina drives the car. Jessica and the two boys sleep in the back. Dan asks Nina what she wants after graduation. She says she'll look for work. Dan listens and supports her. He wants her to find stability. He tells her, "Do what you love, have fun, and don't waste your life." 2 days pass. They get closer to Las Vegas. Jessica smiles, daydreaming about what they'll do there. The family is tired but happy. Soon they arrive in Las Vegas. The luxurious hotel excites Jessica and the kids, but while they celebrate, danger is quietly closing in. Dan took the opportunity to suggest going outside for some fresh air, letting them enjoy the environment on their own. In reality, he was going to meet Augie to pick up their new identities. As Dan takes his wife out to dinner, what he does not expect is that the assassins already know where they are. At the same time, the brother and sister sneak out with the youngest kid, soaking up the wild Vegas vibe. After eating and drinking their fill, the couple return to their room. Jessica sees the fake scene set up by the siblings and thinks the kids are already asleep. She heads back to the bedroom, ready to start a romantic night, and casually turns on the mood fog setting. But right then, Dan, hidden in the mist, is locked onto by a laser. Just as Dan scrambles to deal with two assassins outside, his wife inside is full of excitement. After Dan takes care of the two killers outside, another assassin inside grabs his wife. Jessica, seeing how skilled her husband is with a gun, is completely stunned. Seeing his wife held hostage, Dan slowly puts his weapon down, but secretly grabs a throwing knife hidden in his pant leg. "Let her go. She does not know." "I cannot." "I will say she does now, Dan." The assassin threatens to kill him first, then his wife, and finally their kids. Before the killer finishes his big speech, Dan flicks the knife with one hand. All this intense chaos completely scares Jessica stiff. She turns and runs straight into the kids' room, only to realize everything there was fake. The couple rush to look for the children. Dan has no idea how to explain what just happened. "Do I have things to say? Do I have things to say? I have eyeballs on me. Dan, fucking eyeballs." On the way, Dan keeps trying to explain, but before Jessica sees the kids, she has no patience to hear his nonsense. At that moment, the three siblings are having a blast at an arcade. After finding them, Dan wants to take everyone and leave the city immediately. The siblings do not understand him at all, so with no choice, Dan finally comes clean about his past. "We have to leave because more former co-workers are trying to kill us. Not from used car deals. Before I met your mom, I was a Cobra disaster. I escaped that life, and now they found us." Clearly, the kids do not believe him. Just then, another assassin shows up. Dan moves his wife and kids aside, draws the killer's attention to himself, and takes him down. They find a hidden spot with a drag performer, and Dan explains everything from start to finish. He tells his family his parents divorced when he was young, his mother died when he was 8, and with nothing to do, he joined the army at 18. He turned out to be extremely talented and was recruited by a mercenary group, later sent on assassination missions for intelligence agencies. After years of this life, the mercenary boss became greedy and corrupt, working for anyone who paid enough. When Dan learned the truth, he left the organization. Took out his in. Well, how many? 26. Oh wait, 26 operations. Oh God, 39 people. That's more. After years of lies, Jessica feels she has been living in deception. Furious, She tells Dan that the next morning she will take the kids and leave him behind. Early the next day, she leaves the hotel with the children and asks her friend Gwen, who works at a travel agency, to book 3 tickets home. At the airport, Jessica is shocked when Gwen arrives in a private jet. "I was on a layover nearby, and I thought I'd just come get you myself." On the plane, Jessica vents about her marriage, and Gwen shares a similar story, slowly revealing her own dark past. "I thought he was the one, and then you threw it all away. Married another woman, my complete opposite. I had to see her. I did what I do best. I got close, earned her trust, and waited until she walked into my trap." Jessica realizes in horror that Gwen is a hidden assassin. When she tries to leave the plane, it is already too late, and Big Slick appears at the entrance. Back at the hotel, Dan anxiously waits when his phone rings. On the other end is Big Slick, the mercenary boss, who now has Dan's family. He orders Dan to come alone in 30 minutes to an abandoned hotel in the suburbs. Dan arrives at the meeting point, where one surprise follows another. Jessica no longer knows which of his words are real. Big Slick tells Dan he wants him back to rebuild the organization's glory, but Dan only wants a quiet life with his wife and kids. Under threat, he gives in as his family is taken away. In the elevator, the siblings beg their mother not to abandon their father. When Jessica sees her youngest son, a plan forms. While changing his diaper, she distracts the bald guard and slams into him with the dirty diaper. At the same time, Gwen tries to seduce Dan, jumping on him. "You can't forget your past." Dan knocks her out, revealing it was all part of his plan. Reuniting with Jessica, Dan promises never to hide the truth again, admitting that being with his family is his real self. Soon, father and son spot a drone, and Dan's skill amazes his eldest child. Through the drone, they see Big Slick's men returning. "I got a plan. I need to be that guy one last time." When the enemies reach the elevator, they find it empty except for a bag of diapers. With help from his son, Dan moves through the mall like a ghost, quietly taking down enemy after enemy. Dan finally faces his father, but Big Slick knows he will not shoot and orders his men to attack. Meanwhile, Gwen heads to the rooftop to confront Jessica. Former best friends now face off, and despite her fear, Jessica fights for her children. Her kickboxing skills are no match for Gwen. She smashes a bottle over Gwen's head, but is quickly overpowered. Both battles intensify. Big Slick shoots down the drone, leaving Dan badly beaten. Gwen moves toward the kids, mocking Jessica, who summons her strength and attacks again. Though thrown aside once more, Jessica refuses to give up. Using a broken metal rod, she finally strikes Gwen down. At the same time, Big Slick overpowers Dan, confident his son cannot kill him. At the last second, Jessica and the kids arrive. "Maybe we don't have to hate you. Maybe we can move forward as a family." As Big Slick is distracted, Dan knocks him out cold. With the villains defeated, Big Slick is arrested, the family clears their misunderstandings, and Dan truly leaves his old life behind. From then on, they fall in love with road trips and living freely together. See you next time with another great movie recap.